Do you want a genuinely good end game build that'll make you feel like this? Because you came to the right place. So the build mainly revolves around Claws of Ahamkara, giving you 2 melee charges, and the mod Heavy Handed, which when charged with light and you use your melee, you get 50% of your melee back flat. Now, of course, to take advantage of that, we are using Melee Wellmaker to spawn an Elemental Well when we get a melee kill, and Elemental Charge become charged with light once you pick that up. But a bonus to this is that you get 2 stacks of Charge with Light if the Elemental Well matches your subclass, which it will be. Meaning you have a stack of Charge with Light for each melee. Now, that's only 3 mods. This build is actually really modular, super flexible for whatever content you're doing, and you have 2 free slots. One of my slots goes to Radiant Light for the plus 20 strength bonus alongside making my allies charge with light. And my second free slot goes to Font of Might because more damage is just better. Now for subclass customization, starting with aspects, I use Icarus Dash and Touch of Flame. Touch of Flame because it's the one aspect you should always have on, and Icarus Dash because it's fun as hell. Now, most builds that revolve around infinite solar melees use Heat Rises. But in endgame content like Day 1 raids and GMs, if you're in the air, you're not behind cover, and you're going to get one shot. So I've made this build to have infinite melees while also staying safe. Now for the fragments, I use Ember of Benevolence to be rewarded for buffing allies, Torches to make myself radiant with the melee, Ashes to apply more Scorch stacks to targets, and Searing so that defeating Scorch targets gives me my melee energy back. Now, Benevolence is kind of optional. If you're going to replace with anything, I would recommend Empyrean so that using a solar weapon refreshes Restoration and Radiant timers. But with how often you have your melee, it's kind of unnecessary. Now for the abilities, Healing Rift, of course the Snap. Honestly, you could use Celestial Fire, but the Snap is just so cool, I stick with that. And your Grenade, completely optional. I use Healing Grenade to help me and my teammates, but if you wanted even more lethality, I would recommend, of course, Fusion Grenades. And the final piece of this build puzzle are the weapons. Specifically one, because that's all you need. And that is the BXR with Pugilist and Incandescent. Pugilist for the melee energy generation on kills, and Incandescent because it's one of the best perks in the game, but also because of our fragment, Ember of Searing, Scorch also gives us our melee back. So everything is just feeding into our 2 melees. But outside of that, you're done. You don't need a certain kinetic, you don't need a certain heavy. You could use whatever you wanted for any piece of content. That's one of the best things about this build, is how flexible it is, and also just how good it is. So now I'll show you what it's like to play with it. It's pretty simple though. So I've put up a zoom in on the melee so you can see how often I actually have it. And once this build starts, it doesn't stop. You're running around with infinite melees, which also means you're running around infinitely radiant, which means all of your weapons, all the time, are buffed up by 25%. So even if you're not snapping things out of existence like Thanos, you can just shoot them. And on the topic of lethality, I personally run Healing Grenade, but because I do have infinite melees, I don't feel any less lethal than a Warlock that's actually using a grenade that kills stuff. And killing stuff, the ignition from the melee actually chunks majors, champions, mini bosses, even in GM content. And of course, remember, this build doesn't ask for much. It asks for an exotic, a couple mods, not even all 5, and really your weapon isn't even necessary. You could change your weapon depending on the champion, the shields, whatever. And that's what makes this build so great, is that it asks you for very little and just gives you 100% of what it's got. So if you're interested in what you just saw and you'd like an actually good infinite solar warlock melee build that won't get you killed by telling you to float in the air, I'll have the dim link in the description. And if you'd like me to cover any specific classes or subclasses, let me know in the comments. I'll try to cook up a build that is actually good and viable. But other than that, thank you for watching, and I will see you around.